Hello everyone, my name is Clark Freilich,
And I'm Clyde Goff.
and welcome to the Blocks, Paper, Scissors podcast. In this episode, Clyde and I will be discussing tab stories and extraordinary acts of creativity. Clyde, it's been a couple weeks since we had a chance to talk. Last week, I was busy with a Christmas show and an art show. I know you had your art show a couple weeks ago, and it's always a hectic time coming in through December. And I think we've gone over the hump, but now we're kind of getting ready to breeze into vacation.
End of the first semester is a busy time of year for art teachers, and so especially for tab art teachers, if you are doing assessments and then doing extracurricular things like making 30-foot long murals for your kids' music program, which congratulations, I saw the mural that the kids performed in front of. It turned out beautiful, and it's always a satisfying experience to see a successful music program take off and have the art department contribute mightily to such a endeavor. And I know that you worked hard with helping coordinate the entire holiday event.
As most art teachers do behind the scenes, we will always need to think about our role in the school in taking care of those backdrops, banners, whatever it is. It's just part of what we do. And I think it's an important part as a teacher in a school to build that collegiality with other teachers. We kind of take it for granted in what we do and what we can do, and teachers look upon us in awe as masters and magicians and what we can do in a relative few hours of throwing some paint around to make it look whatever it is that we need to do. So
I think art teachers who help support holiday or school events like a music program are making a mighty contribution and supporting the school, and it's a wonderful way to advocate for your program. And anytime you can involve the kids in the production of, let's say, a mural for the backdrop, that's a wonderful outcome too. And they will always tell their parents, hey, I helped with the mural. And I know that's when we were doing murals for our elementary programs, we would stretch out mural paper. We'd glue together some butcher paper or bulletin board paper together. We could make a 10-foot tall or 12-foot tall by 30-foot long sheet of mural paper, and then reattach it later on to a stage backdrop support apparatus. And you can make a positive impression for your art program and with respect to advocacy when you support the music teacher that way.
Oh, absolutely. When you make murals, especially in the classroom, and the kids can see this, their ideas fire away from that, and which kind of leads into what we're going to talk about, stories from our tab classrooms where students are creating things that they normally wouldn't have the opportunity or just don't have the time or facility to be able to make some of these projects in a regular non-tab classroom.
Right.
And I know you had one. I mean, we can start from the very beginning with your dragon that was prominently displayed at the tab show at the Arnheim Gallery in Boston. It was at the first Tab Gallery show.
Yeah,
Back in
first Tab student gallery show that we know of. Maybe Kathy Douglas and Diane Jake with Pauline Joseph, John Crow may have done one before then, but the one that we attended in 2006, in the spring of 2006, in Boston at the Arnheim Gallery, Massachusetts College of Art and Design, we both submitted work, children's work, to Kathy and Diane. They took a weekend to mount that work, and it was ready for the National Art Education Association's conference in Boston. And in conjunction with that event, it was a tremendous show.
It was very moving. It was. I just remember walking in and reading some of the artist statements
Yes.
that the kids were attached to the artwork, and just blown away.
The Arnheim Gallery, and I hope Kathy's got some photographs from that show. I think she still does. They might be posted on one of the Tab websites. But the works were compelling. The children's works were compelling. One of the works was the dragon mural that one of my students created. It was of a dragon, and you can see its gradual completion on my blog site, which is called Transition to Choice-Based Art Education. And we started publishing that blog in 2004, right after you and I had met with Kathy and Diane in Denver, Colorado, and John Crow was there, of course. And but right after that following spring, we started introducing Tab to our students and opened up a Tab classroom. So I was getting used to practicing teaching for artistic behavior pedagogy the spring of 2004. The following fall of 2005, I had a paint center, drawing center, a book center, and a cardboard construction center that we had opened up. So we had about 3-4 centers. Oh, and a collage center. We had 4 centers running in the fall of 2005. So we were humming along and enjoying our newfound experiences that we discovered. We could create all kinds of wonderful works of art, drawings and collaborative sculptures. It's interesting. One of the tables where some 5th grade boys were working, one of the boys was really good at drawing dragons, and dragons are mythical creatures. And one of his buddies was watching him draw his dragon. It was a nice looking dragon on 12 by 18 inch paper. Well, his buddy Alex saw this dragon, and he thought to himself, well, hey, I'm going to draw a dragon too. So he started to draw a dragon on similar size paper. And the next time they came to class, he asked me, he said, Mr. Gaw, do you have any larger size paper? And I said, well, yeah, Alex, I can set you up with some of this butcher paper that we use for the music murals. So I set him up with, over at the blackboard, we had blackboards back then, he had like a 4 by 6 foot sheet of paper. He started sketching out his dragon with black paint. And it was just black, black tempera paint with a fat stubby brush. He started sketching it out directly onto the butcher paper, and I could see that he needed more paper. So we started attaching more paper, and it just kept growing. And pretty soon he had a 10 foot by 10 foot mural of this giant dragon creature, a mythological dragon creature. It was a sight to behold and a focus point in the art room. And then we had other kids who saw Alex's work. And here's an example of children become inspirationalists to their fellow students. And so we had to break out more space, and we created like 3 or 4 other mural centers. And I had to make some temporary mural centers because everybody wanted to make a mural. Mm-hmm. So there's some examples of murals from 2005 in the blog, Transition to Choice-Based Art Education. And you can go to that blog and see that part of the story unfold from our journey into Tab. And remarkable painting for just a 10-year-old boy to create. And this is an example of discovery learning. Gee, I didn't know I could do such a thing. I'm doing things I never thought I could do before. The expansion of the imagination. This is a critical part of a child's education to experiment and figure out new ways of doing. And
How long did it take him to finish that mural?
I think it was about 6 weeks.
We worked on it for 6 whole weeks.
About 6 weeks.
Wow.
And he came in a couple times during recess to work on it because we had to get it ready for the Arnheim Gallery, because we were in contact with Kathy and Diane, and we said, yeah, we're gonna participate in the Arnheim show. And so we shipped it off November. I think we shipped it off to them. Maybe it was January. I forget. We'll have to ask Kathy when she received it. But it was a wonderful experience to go to Boston, where you and I were presenting also, and that was a blast because I was used to presenting in front of 10 people, and we presented at the national conference in Boston, and we had like 80 people showed up in a big room, and we had a wonderful experience doing that presentation.
The applause.
That once that happened, that was extraordinary and very gratifying.
Yeah, all I remember from that presentation is the end, because typically when I start talking, I forget everything and just talk from the heart. No, but I love that dragon painting, and we'll make sure we put a link to your blog, or we can just get a picture of it and put it in the description.
The blog was started in the spring of 2004, and it's a pretty interesting blog, and it documents some extraordinary things that took place in my classroom, and I mention you quite often in there because, you and I share some of our discussions and some insight that we've observed with respect to things like swarm creativity. For example, you and I were thinking about Victor Lowenfeld a lot back in 1997, 98, 99, 2000. We kept talking about Lowenfeld when you and I whenever we could during our team teaching time. And we were talking about children's developmental levels and also personality types. We were talking about, children who are visual learners, and we were talking about the haptic children. So I remember you had a parent brought you 500 pounds of wood blocks.
Oh, they were laminate samples that were the wrong color, and they were just going to throw them away. So it was probably 1,000 pieces. We just had boxes and boxes.
You must have had 500-600 pounds of those things.
Oh yeah, share the wealth. That's what I would say.
And so you gifted me with, I think, 200 pounds of these blocks, and I said, well, let's try a block center in our room. Well, that was like the biggest thing since Swiss cheese in our room, because the kids were, all the haptic learners and some of the visual ones, they got over there and they started building, and in our room, it was busy before then, but it became super busy, and they were kids building. This is 2007, 2008.
Weren't they doing something with the Tacoma Bridge or something?
Oh, well, the Tacoma Bridge, and a lot of these kids had witnessed 9/11. And
that's right.
They were having cathartic moments at the Block Center, building towers and deconstructing them.
Right.
And there were a lot of children, and there were kids drawing pictures of 9/11 at that right when we started doing tab. There were kids drawing them, but when they could relive the experience, a lot of them were reliving 9/11 at the Block Center. They would build towers. And George Sekeli, he talks about children experiencing the sensation of soaring and of heights, and the integration of play. Play could not be a more important learning experience with respect to what's going on in the school with these children, because they're biologically hardwired for play. So the Block Center became this place. It was a magnet for all kinds of groups of kids, and they would be. What was interesting to find out later on was they were planning outside of class what they were going to do at the Block Center in the art room.
We're just talking massive constructions, like 8 feet in diameter.
Oh yeah.
The blocks are maybe a ½ inch thick, 6 inches long, and 3 inches wide.
Yeah.
So they were like planks.
Yeah.
And one side was curved, so you couldn't use that side.
Yeah.
Good. And so they actually had to do a lot of thinking when they were building it, because it wasn't just throwing a block up.
Yeah.
And had to be a certain way. I just remember seeing some of these humongous constructions, because my kids at the time were not doing anything like that. They were...
Were they stacking?
They were stacking. I mean, they do a lot of towers.
Uh-huh.
You mentioned 9/11. They were doing a lot of towers, but some of the other things that your kids were doing as swarm activities, when you have a lot of boys getting together.
Yeah.
I didn't have that in my classroom.
We were observing swarm creativity and swarm intelligence before it became a thing. This is 2007, 2008, when we introduced the Block Center. They were just swarming over them. And what's interesting is the groups were self-organizing, and they were like working in unison and collaboratively, as if they were one unit.
Yeah, I experienced something similar later on was kind of more of an art trap. We talk about art traps now. Back then, someone who was working at one of the local restaurants, they spilt Coke on a bunch of straws. And so instead of throwing the straws away, they brought them and said, "Here, do you want these straws? We can't use them anymore."
How many straws are we talking about?
They brought the straws in a bag about the size of a 40-gallon trash bag. So there was hundreds and hundreds of these clear plastic straws.
You have like 10,000 straws.
I have no idea. A lot of straws. And I think I put together a cube kind of to show them how to attach them. And I just left it on the floor. And then some boys started building, 3 or 4 of them at a time. But the boys petered out after a while. And then the girls took over. And then the girls were like, "We're going to build an Eiffel Tower. And so how are we going to build this?" So they worked on it for like six weeks. And we finally got, I think the finished Eiffel Tower was about 15 feet tall.
I remember.
We had to build it in 2 parts.
Yeah.
Because we built it to my ceiling, the first half, and then we had to build the second half separate. But we had to make sure that they stacked on top of each other and held together. And a 16-foot tower of straws. It would fall, and they're like, "How do we?" This idea of engineering, thinking, and design came into play, because now we had to talk about supporting, using braces and even with straws, when you get something that's big, you have to support, and keeping the base from splaying out like a llama on ice.
Yeah, because the top's pretty heavy.
Oh yeah, they had the observation deck, they had everything, and it was a masterful piece of hot glue and straw.
I remember it was the showcase at the county art show when you exhibited that. I forget what year we were at Eastern Hancock High School, and it was in the main gym. It was in the center of the gym. We had high school exhibitions, middle school, but the showpiece was your elementary kids' 16-foot tall Eiffel Tower.
Well, anytime that I know you and I can do something like that, or the kids can do something like, you and I always make sure that we showcase it. And I've done it with the Eiffel Tower. I think one year we kind of played off Diane's Lucky Town.
Oh yeah, Lucky Town, yes.
With having kids started building these structures out of cardboard, and one thing led to another, and the next thing you know, hey, let's take all these, put them together, and make a town. So that happened in my school, and they were doing it in your school, and we decided to stick them together and took up 20% of the display space in our area.
That was a byproduct of having a working cardboard construction center. I observed other groups of children interested in building, they want to recreate a living environment with cardboard. They were building big doll houses and then houses and buildings.
Gerbil houses.
And yeah,
Hamster houses.
Hamster houses.
Here's a movie theater for my hamster.
So we had a lot of building construction going on with respect to the Cardboard Construction Center and the Block Building Center. And I think, well, you and I had seen Diane present on Lucky Town at one of the national conferences, and I just talked to you at some point and said, well, we should build our own Lucky Town. We have enough building sculptures to do that, and then we collaborated later on. And there's a video of our Lucky Town on transition to choice-based art education on that blog.
I'm glad you have all those, because I don't know if I have any of them.
It's still there if anyone wants to look at it.
Again, we'll add that to our description. We'll have these all, so you don't have to go digging for them, but we'll also have a link to your blog, because there really is some good information there. I think there's already a permanent link on the website, on the Podbean website.
Yeah, there is. But it was interesting to see things back to emergence. The concept of emergence and emergent curriculum happening before our very eyes, and we could see its importance and supporting children from the back end, as Ian Sands likes to say. You support children from the back end. They have an idea, they start running with it, and the teacher supports them from the position of
overseeing, helping,
enhancing,
stepping in when needed.
Yes.
Because the thing that's important for students to really learn is to take control of their learning.
Right.
And not relying on the teacher to always open the door for the next adventure.
Right. So to be reliant on the teacher all the time. When do you wean a child off of teacher-directed experience? In our art rooms, we try to eliminate that right at the get-go, and we from my perspective, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm sharing information, sharing possibilities, sharing materials, and enhancing student ideas, and acting as a living resource. When I absolutely have to intervene and do a intervention, I'm ready to do that because I've been trained to do that. But really what you and I want to do is let children experience the power of their own minds and the power of their own ideas.
Right.
And so the TAB classroom is the perfect learning environment for that to happen.
I know it's always been a question. You and I have talked about it. A lot of times kids, when you were in elementary, or my experience now, they come to you and say, will you do this for me?
Yeah.
Can you cut out a heart for me? I always say, no, I want you to cut it out. Oh, but it's not going to be right. I'm like, so what? That's when you say, why don't you draw the heart and then cut it out? Instead of having me doing it for them, then when they see they do it, then they're able to really own that. I couldn't before because I'm always so used to asking mom or dad or the teacher to do it.
Yeah, the adult is the de facto resource, and that's the first step in our pathway to solve a problem is to go have the adult solve the problem for us that we have.
There's a YouTube video that I show kids. It's called The Escalator. That's the name of it. But basically, it's about problem solving.
Uh-huh.
It's about a gentleman who gets stuck on an escalator,
Uh-huh.
and he just stands there complaining about the escalator not working.
Uh-huh.
And the obvious answer is like, most problems are easily solved.
Uh-huh.
But kids have never had that opportunity to do that problem solving. We do a lot of
Coaxing and
coaxing and coaching and pointing out that when kids are asking us, when they think they're problem finding, they're just problem stating and not thinking about how to solve the problem. So I get a lot of, my pencil broke.
Do you know
They-
how to...
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or they'll find something on the floor and they'll go, I found this. And I just want to say, congratulations. Now what are you going to do with it?
At high school, I still get kids who will tell me, Mr. Gaw, what do I do with my I'm out of paint. What should I do? I'm like, well, what you can do is extend your quadricep muscles, put one foot in front of the other, and go walk over to the paint center and get some paint.
My pencil needs sharpened. Use your eyes, look around the room, find the tool that you need to use, and go for it.
Yeah. Not all of our kids are that way. But
Not all, but
have,
there are times when it's smack your head and you're like, come on, think.
But thinking about what are the conditions that the child has experienced up to this point that they lack the initiative to do things
Because
like
everything's been laid out for them.
Right.
This is how you do it. You don't have to think. You don't have to problem solve because the teacher's done everything for them.
Yeah.
Or the parents done everything for them.
Yeah.
And that's not independent. That's dependent.
Yeah. Yeah. Talking about initiative, that's my main emphasis this year with 14 to 18-year-olds was on taking initiative. And from my perspective, that's everything that, artists have to take initiative. And like you said, dependency or a attachment to an authority to do things for you. Heaven's sakes, that's why we preach autonomy, we preach initiative, we preach problem posing, questioning, from the foundational aspect of the entire creative process. That's what we're teaching from day one in our tab classrooms, so that the child gets the full experience of being responsible for their actions, their activities, and their learning.
We do that a lot. We see a lot of times teachers are trying to teach kids how to come up with ideas, how to find problems. It has to permeate your program.
Yeah.
It's constant all the time. It's not a unit. You can introduce it as a unit, but you have to keep hitting it constantly.
It's an aspect of your program culture.
Right.
The classroom culture. And part of, if you look at the elements that support creativity in its entirety, from the aspect of allowing for ambiguity, allowing for time and incubation, allowing that to occur for children to experience uncertainty in their ideas. And, that's an important part of the creativity cycle and the creative process. So I'm willing to give a child time. Now, if I see that there needs to be an intervention, then I'm going to be on it and offer up art traps or art games. If there's too much time has elapsed, then there's going to be an intervention on my part. But allowing for ambiguity to occur, I think is important to let the child experience a sense of ambiguity and uncertainty.
It's that sense of almost being lost and helping them find their own way, as opposed to, this is the path you're going to take. and in doing that, develops their confidence in their own ideas and their own problem solving.
The eminent American psychologist Rollo May
Oh yeah, Rollo.
he's the one who coined the term. He wrote the book The Courage to Create,
Mm-hmm.
and he says that children have to come to terms with their own boredom. And so that's when they come to terms with their own boredom, and they realize that, hey, I can improve my state of mind, I can improve my situation if I use my imagination. I can create all kinds of interesting events and phenomena and learning situations.
Well, that whole idea of being bored is one of those things that teachers fear.
Uh-huh.
They look at their class, well, they're just bored. They think that's a reflection on them as a teacher. And it's not a reflection. When we're bored, we're hitting reset because we can do the things, but sometimes we get bored with doing something a lot.
Uh-huh.
And in that boredom, our mind resets and we become more creative
Right.
out of boredom. When we're bored, we try to find solutions to things that we've been incubating
Right.
in the back of our head. And to always keep kids occupied doing something
Right.
does them a disservice
Right.
because they need that time, that downtime. And I think that is a problem with technology because now we have devices.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as we're bored, we pull out the phone.
Yeah.
We never get to reset our mind back to that level
Uh-huh.
of trying to be creative because we always have a device in our hand or in our pocket. And as soon as we get bored, we turn it on and we play a game. We do on Snapchat. We never develop that sense of pulling ourselves out of that boredom through creativity.
Absolutely vital point about the role of ambiguity in the development of the creative mind. And I think it's essential to be able to have time to think about problems that may be bubbling up from a feeling or emotion. And we were talking earlier podcasts about, that's the basis of an idea is a feeling and emotion, and having time to think through this problem and think through possible solutions to it, and then going about experimenting with realizing that idea with different materials.
Mm-hmm.
So watching, I recall now giving a young man in my room, giving him time in class to just look at different reading material and doing basically what I call research. And after about a week of just leaving him alone, he's been doing some tremendous stencil work he's cutting stencils out of 2-foot by 3-foot sheets of paper and then spray painting them, and some wonderful works coming from him. All because I just left him alone, and I knew he had stuff going on in his head. He's a very deep thinker, and so I would just, if an administrator were to walk into my room and see him doing nothing, I would tell the administrator that he's incubating an idea, and we're just going to let him sit because something's going to happen later on. I know because I've seen the pattern over and over.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the pattern we observed. We started observing with kids back in 2004, 2005, is that once you allow them the opportunity to do authentic creative art, that it's important to give them a chance to incubate an idea. And that's a term that Nan Hathaway coined, the idea incubation. And,
Right.
And she wrote about that in Smoke and Mirrors in that article.
Mm-hmm. Because I know it's probably more prevalent in a high school program where kids come in ready with an idea.
Yeah.
I know you had an experience with Libby and
Yes.
her.
Amazing artist. She came out of your program
Mm-hmm.
and came from elementary Here's this young lady. She's about 5 foot tall, and
Very quiet.
last year's very quiet. She had an interest in science fiction series called Doctor Who. Well, she was enrolled in our Intro to 3D art class last year. And class, it was about 30 some kids, populated with a lot of big football players, and they're all wanting to do plaster carving. And so, okay, you can do plaster casting, plaster carving. They were enjoying working with clay, working with cardboard marble runs. We were doing a lot of marble runs, big ones, like 7 feet tall marble runs, lots of tracks. We introduced marble runs at the elementary level back in 2010. They just took off. They were using marbles at the block center and then at the cardboard construction center. We're introducing Newtonian physics. You talk about steam. We're smoking hot, I mean, we've got all kinds of mechanical engineers going on in there. So here's little Libby, all 5 feet tall of her, working in this classroom filled with football players. And she's excited about realizing her ideas from the science fiction series Doctor Who. So she says, Mr. Gaw, where's your hot glue guns? I said, they're over there in the Invention Center, which is our cardboard construction center. And she begins to build a giant cardboard structure. It's very complex. It's about 6 feet tall and 5 feet in diameter. And she's building one of the robot alien creatures from Doctor Who called a Dalek. So she's building this giant cardboard Dalek with all kinds of detail. And there's, angle pieces and lots of diagonal pieces that have to go in place. And she brings in a plunger from Walmart. She's bringing in other materials to embellish the surface on it. She spray paints it gold and copper. And then she adds a tape recorder to it, tape recording, and a light fixture so it actually blinks. And she outfits it to say exterminate, exterminate. And I'm just blown away by this young lady's creation and her realization of this sculpture idea. And but just another example of emergent curriculum, what can transpire in a tab classroom when children feel ready to take a risk, put mind into motion, and realize a fantastical idea.
Exactly. Although it doesn't happen consistently, but these are the times when we see how great tab can be. These are our pinnacle moments.
Absolutely. These are extraordinary moments that we are very privileged to witness, because what we're witnessing are examples of human creativity unbound. And it's so exciting to see it happen when we get a chance to see it, like the Eifle Tower piece, the battle drawing that your boys did.
Oh yeah, the battle drawing.
Oh my gosh,
that was incredible. I'll just tell real quickly. So I had these boys started off with an 8x12 piece of paper.
8 by 12 inch.
Yeah, and they were drawing with pencil a battle scene.
Uh-huh.
And then the next time they came in, they attached another piece of paper to it, drew more of a battle scene, but continued the battle. And then a couple other boys joined into the battle, and it got physical. I mean, if they launched a bomb, they would draw the line over the pieces of paper and blow up with the noises. And this went on for about, my goodness, 2 months.
Oh my.
And we ended up with a battle scene that was at least 10 feet wide of just pieces of paper attached to other pieces of paper with lines drawing all over the place. So it was very haptic and not a linear idea. It was very, very rhizome-like, the development of it. And if you were any at all OCD, you couldn't be anywhere near this drawing because there was uneven pieces of paper. You would have 9 by 12 pieces of paper stapled or glued to, and then they would find a piece of poster paper that was bigger, and then they would attach that at an angle. It just ended up to be a very organic drawing that these kids, I think there was probably 7 or 8 kids that ended up working on this one drawing, on this game. It wasn't even a drawing. It had transformed into an activity.
Another example of emergent experience taking place. And I saw the drawing, and I'm telling you, Cy Twombly didn't have nothing on those kids.
And if you died in the drawing, you could not draw on it. You were dead. So then those guys would then go to create their own. But it never reached the completeness of the original. You know, the original idea had grown, and then as people died off, they would try to make their own, but it never really caught on like the original. So that idea had kind of died out.
You and I had done a lot of research on boys' art and battle drawings, weapon art.
You know what? I think that would be a great topic for another podcast, because we need to wrap this one up.
We were just getting started.
I know, we were just getting started. With Christy being here and interviewing us and looking for that nice article in the paper about this podcast. So I'm kind of looking forward to it. But with the Christmas season coming up, I know I wanted to make sure that I wish everyone happy holidays.
Absolutely, happy holidays.
I'm not sure if we'll be around next week. We probably will try to get one more podcast in before Christmas break.
We'll see what happens.
And then, because I know we'll have 2 weeks off for Christmas break and spend time with family away from family.
We wish everyone who listens to our podcast a restful holiday and time off. If you're a teacher teaching, you have to take care of yourself and just incubate for a while. Sometimes you just have to incubate and not even incubate, just rest.
So think about that.
Oh, and you know what else I forgot? We had a question on Tab Art Educators.
Okay.
About how to make paper mache.
Is there anything else you'd like to add, Clyde?
Well, so if you take a bunch of leftover newspaper or
white paper, recycled paper,
ABU paper, already been used paper, soak it in some hot water. That hot water does best in breaking down the fibers. Soak it in hot water for 10 minutes. Or if you don't have a hot water, just soak it in water.
For 15 minutes.
15 minutes. Drain the water. You have some really soft paper. Take a 1x1 or a 2x2 that's about 2.5 feet long or 3 foot long. Put the paper in a 5-gallon bucket and then pound the smithereens out of it like a mortar and pestle.
Pound the snot out of it.
Just pound it into oblivion.
I know when you did it in elementary, a little duct tape around the end of it.
Yeah, sure.
To keep kids from getting splinters.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to do that, or you can just sand the wherever they hold it, make sure there's just no jagged edges.
And just beat it constantly. Now, did you just use water? I know at one time you experimented with paste.
Yeah. We just use wheat paste.
Wheat paste, or did you use art paste?
I've come to find out now just straight up wheat paste works best, but actually any kind of glue will work. You could shoot some Elmer's glue in there and make that work. You could shoot some regular flour into it.
I don't know. How does that mold eventually?
Yeah,
I know some of your
the flour might flour might mold if if it's dried
mildew.
and wet in a damp space, it might get mildew.
You always got mildew masks.
Yeah, I do. I got mildew one time.
That was the whole science experiment.
One time
Why
we
is
came
there
back-
black all over my mask?
No, it's red and green mold. One time was like, oh man.
Creative mold.
Oh wow! But yeah, maybe not flour. Don't use flour if you're using use a wheat paste or Elmer's glue. I think would be, small amounts of Elmer's glue would work also. But then add water to a consistency that you like for a sculptural material, and you've got a wonderful sculpting material. And
That takes forever to dry.
Yeah, about 3-4 days to dry in sunlight or warm air, and then after.
Don't put it in the kiln.
Yeah, don't put it in a kiln. Just put in sunlight or near warm air by a heating vent. After about a week, it starts to get crusty, and if it's really good to use in like springtime or fall, when you can put it outside to dry, and eventually it does dry after a couple weeks. It'll get rock hard.
Yeah, because you can then sand it.
Sand it and cut it, polish
it,
paint it.
It kind of reminds me of a very thick pressed cardboard egg carton.
Yeah, that's exactly what. Yeah, it's like pressed paper egg carton.
So save your recycled paper.
Yeah.
Don't give it to Abitibi or anybody else, but tear it up. Smaller pieces probably would help.
Tear it up into smaller bits, and soak it in some hot water if you got it. If not, soak it in regular water, and then drain the water. Pound the snot out of it with some 1x1s or 2x2s in a 5-gallon bucket. Have the kids do the pounding.
Yes, give it to the kids who jump up and down all the time.
Yeah, let them expend their energy.
Because they can use it.
And they will love it.
Yep.
So that's how we make paper mache.
All right, so that's awesome. You gave a tip, and there was much rejoicing.
Anything we can do to make art fun.
That's going to just about wrap up this episode of Blocks, Paper, Scissors, Clyde. Just a reminder to our listeners, if you have a question or topic you'd like us to discuss on Blocks, Paper, Scissors, just email it to Clyde at seagal@newpal.k12.in.us. Check the links in the description. This podcast is now available on Podbean and iTunes. So if you like what you hear, please subscribe and give us a review. I promise you, we won't take offense. Thank you for listening to the Blocks, Paper, Scissors podcast. And remember, never say oops, always say, interesting. Happy holidays, everyone.
Bye-bye.
What in the name of Sam Hill is that?